So this is a video about how I've modified my Salomon S-Lab 8 Sense Ultra Marathon vest. And the reason I modified it is because when I put it on like this, what I found was that with these little skinny elastics they use, it would move around a lot on me, even when I pulled it tight. Now my friend said maybe it was too big, but it isn't, it's about right. But I just find this elastic is a bit stretchy, especially when I've got the pack either heavily loaded here or when I've got not much in it. When I've got not much in it, I think it's a little bit slacker. When it's heavily loaded, especially in the back, it's tighter, but then it just moves around like this. So when I've been running, I've tried experimenting and just holding this together, and it felt much better. So here's the mod I've made. I decided to get a slightly thicker elastic, if you're coming closer. So this is about 2 mil and this is 3 mil. And I'm going to show you how I made this mod. So let's get this off. So the hope is that it's going to move around a lot less. Now there's another thing I noticed when I made this, and that is that if you line these up, if you come in real close here, don't actually line up. The way they assembled it, you see it doesn't really line up. So really I think it should go through here. So when I've done the top one here, you can see I've gone through between two of these stitchings instead of across one of them. So the thinking is also that's going to put all of the stress on one set of stitching. Whereas if you look at this one, it's actually going to share the stress across two stitches. Now I've got no concerns about these stitching, but it's just a small thing that I realized. So I bought a whole bunch of this. This is 3 mil shock cord, and 3 mil is just about right. Here's something else I noticed with the standard stuff. It doesn't really clip in here. Yet if you look at this piece, the profile of it is that it's slightly thinner here and then fatter here. So with the right size shock cord, I figured that it would actually just clip in and stay in. And that's quite useful because sometimes I'd be finding when I was running, especially when the pack wasn't heavily loaded, I would lean down to take a sip from the water bottle, and that leaning down and pulling this up, it would just cause the top one to unhook. So I think I've probably solved that. So this is the, I'll show you how the new one works. Let's put this back on. And then we're just gonna do the other one. So first of all, the first concern is how easy is it to do? It's just as easy as the standard one. And the thinking is that's just going to be a lot stiffer, a lot tighter. Not tighter, but just not so flexy. I mean, you can make it as tight as you want, but the idea is that when you set the tightness, it's not going to be quite so malleable or flexible. So let's get it set. It's really easy to do. I mean, the key is really just to get this shock cord. Now, here's the old one that I took off. You can see it here. And it's almost exactly 30 centimeters long. So you don't need to buy too much of this shock cord. I bought a 4 mil and a 3 mil. The 4 mil's definitely too thick. So I bought 2 meters and it was 2 pounds. So a little bit of flame on the end of this just to melt it. I find that's useful. Like this. Cut it to just about 30 centimeters. You know what? I'm assuming they're the same length. Let's not assume that. Let's check this. So, yeah, might need to get your teeth on this. Right, so let's pull this out. So you don't really need to note where it goes because you're just going to line it up again afterwards. Let's take this out. Let's measure this up on my ruler. Yeah, it's more or less, it's 30 centimeters. So I'm going to cut myself a fresh bit. 30 centimeters. Oops. How's my camera assistant? Is that angle all right? Can you see what's going on here? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be better from above maybe, or is it all right?
No, you can see what's going on.
Okay. So the other thing I did, I put this little tag on. You can see, I don't think it's really useful. I don't think it does anything, but just because I want to do a nice job, I'm going to put it on. What you will find is it's a little small to go on here. So here's how I did it. A little bit of sellotape. Wrap it around at an angle like this, because then what you can do is you can make like a super thin kind of pointy bit like this, right? and that's going to allow you to thread it through here. And once you get it started, when you pull, it's going to basically stretch the shock cord and make it thinner. So, oh, that didn't work very well, did it? Maybe some pliers on here. The other one seemed to work okay. Come on. It's not going to go. You know what? We're not going to do that bit. So I've melted both ends of this, just so it doesn't fray. And this is super easy to do. We got to get the little thing off the old one. And by the way, this 3mm just about goes through here perfectly. If I went for the 4, it wouldn't fit in here, and it definitely wouldn't fit in here. So we have to, first of all, line these up. Can you bring the camera above? Find out where it's going to go. We're going to go through here and through here. Now, the thing I did make sure was make sure it's not twisted, because if it's twisted, when you put it in, you're going to get this effect, which we don't want. So make sure it's not twisted. And this, I guess you could probably thread it through there afterwards. And then this bit, I'm sure is obvious. You're just going to compress this with your fingers. Push it through. Again, just check it's not twisted, because now's the time to untwist it. The other thing I found is the standard one had these two ends tied together, which is probably quite neat. I did them separately like this because this shock cord is thicker. It's going to make a bigger knot, and maybe I should have cut this a little bit longer. I don't know. So we're just going to tie these off to stop them slipping right through. And I'll just try to get them as close to the end as possible. Again, I use the teeth. There we go. You know what? I've realised because I'm not tying them together, it doesn't even matter if they're twisted, because we can just untwist them afterwards. And in fact, they'll untwist in use, won't they? So that is it. I guess the only thing to make sure is, unfortunately I got it right, is I've got the button on top here, and I've got the button on top here as well. So that's pretty cool, and that is really it. Let's just try this on. So I actually think this tag is going to maybe get in the way. This little whistle certainly gets in the way. So it's easy to clip in. That's easy to clip in. And I think that that is going to be much more solid. I've got to say, these just feel too spindly.